Very plain. Why don't you walk the wheel with us? What is the matter, my American friend? What has upset you? The bad machine doesn't know he's a bad machine. You still don't believe it. You still don't believe you're a bad machine. To know yourself is to know God, my friend. The factory knows. That's why they put you here. You'll see. You'll find out. In time, you'll know.
Oh, I know. I already know. I know that you are a bad machine. That's why the factory keeps you here. Do you know how I know, huh? I know because I'm from the factory. I make the machines.
You're listening to Jim Dynamo's Bad Machine, home of the intellectual smackdown, where thought exists without error and truth knows no compromise. No quarter is asked, and no quarter is given, as the lies that bind us to the bad machine are torn asunder with unassailable fact and unquestionable reason. So put on your thinking caps and strap yourselves in, and stand by for the original man machine, Jim Dynamo.
When your bags ain't packed.
There it was, a light, bobbing in the dark, in the distance. After many hours at sea, the passengers on the vessel gathered on the bow to see the small light slowly bouncing in the distance. Some of them were immigrants. Some of them were merchants, some of them were sailors, who were used to the sight. Their vessel would continue in the direction toward this light until daybreak, and as the sun came up behind them, be greeted to an amazing sight. First, an immense statue, the largest in the world, standing at 110 feet tall, a torch in its hand, its head capped off with a crown of spikes like the rays of the sun. And as the ship got closer to their destination dock, all of the people on the vessel would crowd to the front to see this amazing statue, this colossus of metal. It was the year 280 BC, and these travelers were heading from the Orient, Turkey, the old world that we know, to destination, the island of Rhodes in the Mediterranean. The island of Rhodes is just west of the coast of modern-day Turkey and is one of the larger islands that leads you up into the Greek archipelago. In 300 BC, Hares of Lindo, in celebration of Rhodes' victory over the Macedonian invasion attempts of their island, began construction of a statue to the patron god of the city of Rhodes, Helios, the sun god. And he would craft and create over a 12-year period an amazing statue called the Colossus of Rhodes. There are many tales of the Colossus of Rhodes, and how this statue stood astride the gateway to the port city of Rhodes. But it is most likely not true, because the port city would have had to have been closed for the 12 years of construction, as this immense structure was built over its port city's main access. The Colossus of Rhodes was one of the wonders of the ancient world, considered now one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Construction completed about 280 BC. Unfortunately, 54 years later, in 226 BC, the Colossus of Rhodes crashes to the ground after an earthquake, and its remains would stay there for about 800 years. Even in this diminished state, the Colossus of Rhodes was still a spectacle, and tourists were attracted to Rhodes, still from all over the world, to see this amazing construction. It was said that a man could not get his arms around one of the fingers of the Colossus while it lay there in the ground. In 653 AD, the Muslim Caliph Muawiyah had the remains destroyed and had them sold to a merchant from Edessa. and the remains of the Colossus of Rhodes were carried off to the now city of Homs in Syria, packed on 900 camels. The legacy of the Colossus of Rhodes would not be forgotten, and thousands of years later, we remember it to this day as this amazing structure, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. There it was, a light, bobbing in the dark, in the distance. The passengers of the ship would all crowd into the bow, and as the sun came up behind them, what they saw was an amazing sight. A huge statue, standing at 151 feet tall. And behind it, one of the world's largest cities, the metropolis known as New York. 2,376 years after seafaring travelers would first gaze upon the Colossus of Rhodes, travelers from the Old World would gaze upon the New World's Colossus, Liberty enlightening the world. That's what she was called back then. We know her as the Statue of Liberty, designed by Frederick Auguste Bartholdi. Bartholdi Avenue in the Bronx, sound familiar? Frederick Auguste Bartholdi is commemorated with that Bronx street because he designed the Statue of Liberty. He designed it and he built it. Inspired by the commentary of Edward René de la Boulaye, Bartholdi would be driven to create a statue that would represent America from the European perspective. The European perspective at the time was one of a millennia of servitude to kings and empires, and now up-and-coming republics and democracies. But what America represented to the European was this break from this millennia-old quagmire of stagnation, and America represented liberty. So Bartholdi was somewhat torn. Did he represent America with Columbia, the goddess that was most frequently associated with the United States, or would he represent America with Libertas, the goddess of freedom? He would choose the latter, Libertas. Just like the Colossus of Rhodes would stand at the gateway of New York's port city, welcoming immigrants and travelers from all over the world, her torch ablaze, her spiked crown, just like the rays of the sun, greeting them as they traveled from their old lives to new lives. Gustav Eiffel, the same guy who would build the Eiffel Tower, assisted Bartholdi in the creation of the Statue of Liberty, or, as she was known then, Liberty Enlightening the World. He had an assistant before that, in one Eugene Villayd-le-Duc, but he died in 1879, and Bartholdi was forced to reach out, and Eiffel was more than up to the task. Eiffel created a 4-foot prong pedestal system that the outer framing of the Statue of Liberty would be riveted to. And with $16,000 worth of copper, worth over $365,000 on today's market, this French sculptor and his metal-working compatriots would craft the world's most famous statue. Liberty Enlightening the World would carry a torch in her right hand, a symbol of that freedom, and in her left hand she would hold the Tabrula Ansata, the Tablet of Law. Inscribed on the Tablet of Law is the date, July 4th, 1776, the date of the signature of the American Declaration of Independence. Liberty Enlightening the World's construction would take a few more years than Bartholdi would have wanted. It would take contributions from the American citizens themselves in an effort inspired by Joseph Pulitzer, and then again carried on by his son many years later. Over $120,000 were donated by American citizens, $2.3 million in today's market, and the Statue of Liberty's construction and her pedestal was completed. Her pedestal was designed by Richard Morris Hunt, Morrisania of the Bronx, Hunts Point of the Bronx. Again, the Bronx has its fingers and a lot of historic pies. Richard Morris Hunt would design Liberty's pedestal in an Aztec pyramid fashion, just like the pyramid on the back of your $1 bill. It's not Egyptian, it's Aztec, and therefore American in design. And on June 17th, 1885, on the steam vessel Asir, Liberty enlightening the world would arrive in the New World as broken down cargo to be reconstructed in the coming year. Over 200,000 New Yorkers would flock to the piers and the docks and boats to watch the unconstructed Statue of Liberty arrive at New York. After the usual bureaucratic red tape and mishmash and money donating schemes, Liberty was finally completed. On October 28, 1886, former New York Governor, now President, Grover Cleveland, would begin the opening commencement ceremony for Liberty enlightening the world. There would be water parades, there would be land parades. America was very proud to receive this gift. The French were very proud to donate this gift to us with our financial assistance. What Liberty represented to the world was very different than the statues of old. She was no lounging god or goddess. She was not reclining. She was not haughty in her position. She was striding forward with the torch in one hand, the broken chain of slavery hidden beneath her Roman pella, the chain dangling from her sandaled foot. She represented the change from the old world, that here in this new world, anything could be possible, as long as that light of liberty, that torch of freedom, was kept burning and held aloft. In 1924, President Calvin Coolidge makes the Statue of Liberty a national monument. And in 1956, Bedloe Island is officially changed to Liberty Island. The Statue of Liberty has a proper home on her own island. Between the years 1886 and 1957, almost 59 million new Americans would first gaze upon the Statue of Liberty as they arrived at America's shores. Her message was clear to each of them. And to this day, the Statue of Liberty is the most recognized symbol all over the world. The Europeans Bartholdi and de la Boulaye understood what the upstart nation, only 113 years old at the time, meant to the world. America was a game changer. Liberty enlightening the world would be a permanent symbol of that change. Forever moving forward, forever her torch held high, forever the date of the Declaration of Independence held to her breast. 131 years later, I wonder if Americans today understand what those Frenchmen understood more than a century ago. This is the game changer. We are the game changer. We're the new game. And if we drop the ball just once, the old world and the old world's tyrannies are all waiting like jackals, ready to snatch that ball, that torch of freedom, from us at any given opportunity. Those jackals don't necessarily have to be non-Americans. Those who pledge to defend the Constitution pledge to do so against enemies foreign and domestic. And those enemies, they loathe the Statue of Liberty. They loathe the idea of liberty enlightening the world. You know who they are. They're the people who are always talking about taking away your liberties, taking away your rights, your First Amendment rights to say what you need to say, your Second Amendment rights to defend your way to say it, and your nation. Your Fourth and your Fifth Amendment rights, your Sixth Amendment rights, your rights to privacy, your rights to property seizure. No, there are many domestic enemies of your freedom. Many people who hide behind this statue, yet are doing everything they can to chip away at her base. We know who they are. They announce themselves every day, and they announce themselves by telling you they want to take away what liberty enlightening the world has represented to them. They want to reforge the chains that once bound Libertas by the ankle. They want to forge those chains around your ankles. Many years ago, Grandpa Dynamo and Great-Grandpa Malleus did too gaze upon that amazing statue. And I can only wonder what those men thought as they gazed upon her and the promise of freedom that this new world offered. I, for one, will not forsake that promise. I will not be a member of a generation who stands by idly while those chains are recast and forged around the ankles of my fellow Americans. June 17th, 1885. June 17th, 2016. 131 years, liberty has proudly stood on display as a beacon of hope and freedom to a world enslaved by tyrannies. Those tyrannies have not gone away. That torch of freedom only burns if there is someone to hold it up. The statue is a symbol. You are flesh and blood. Let the symbol live in you, and all you say, and all you do, while you help liberty enlighten the world. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land, here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome, her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep ancient lands your storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. You're listening to Bad Machine on the PPRN Radio Network. Are you ready to get blitzed? Prepare yourself for life's uphill battle. Master Trainer Jim D's Fitness Blitz training techniques will make you stronger, more determined, and ready for any challenge. Burn fat, build muscle, improve your cardiovascular health with resistance training, mental conditioning, martial arts, yoga, and sports-specific performance enhancement. Train in your home, on Fitness Blitz certified equipment, or in your local gym. Take the Fitness Blitz Challenge. Begin every day by pushing your limits and taking control of your life. Grab life by the horns and reach for your ideal potential. Dive into a new concept in total health and competitive activity. Challenge yourself to be better and dare not to fail with Fitness Blitz. Learn more at www.fitnessblitztv or by calling 917-804-6589. Begin your quest to be your best with Fitness Blitz today. Fight those who do not believe in Allah, nor in the latter day, nor do they prohibit what Allah and His Apostle have prohibited, nor follow the religion of truth out of those who have been given the book, until they pay tax in acknowledgement of superiority and they are in a state of subjection. Quran 9:29. The tax in question is called the jizya, a tax put on all non-Muslim males and families who do not convert to Islam but live in Muslim lands. Unlike America and the majority of the West, Islam, for its 1400-year existence, is a totalitarian system. It controls everything. It controls religion, it controls the military, it controls social behaviors, it controls marriages, it controls medicine, it controls science, it controls everything. It is all-encompassing. Because there is no separation of church and state, Islam being the church and the state, this tax is imposed to empower the state and subjugate the non-Muslims. Also, it encourages them to convert to Islam, increasing the flock of submissive slaves who kneel 5 times a day to their pedophile, warlord, rapist, tyrant. In 711 AD, disguised as merchant ships, Tariq ibn Ziyad, under orders from the Umayyad Caliph al-Walid, invaded Spain. Crossing the Straits of Gibraltar, the Pillars of Hercules, he invaded Europa with a force of 1,700 Muslims, mostly Berbers, and would begin a 1,219-year reign of terror on the European continent. From 711 to 1920, Muslim tyranny, Muslim intolerance, and violence plagued Europe. Muslims would push as far as Tours, France, only to be pushed back by Charles Martel, Charles the Great, freeing Europe from the possibility of conquest centuries ago. In 1408, Sigismund, King of Hungary, created Societas Draconistarum, the Society of Dragons, also known as the Order of Dragons, a chivalric order of nobles selected by King Sigismund who would defend the Holy Roman Empire from the continued Muslim invasions of Europe, first the Umayyads and now the Ottomans. The Order of the Dragon would play a significant role in the defense of Europe from the Ottoman invasions for the first half of the 15th century, and with the death of King Sigismund, the order would somewhat decline in popularity. In 1431, with the death of Vlad Tepes II, Prince of Wallachia, his son, Vlad Tepes III, would inherit his noble titles. Vlad Tepes III would be known as Vlad, son of the dragon, Vlad Dracula. Vlad Dracula was not the vampire that American and European cinema have portrayed him to be. What Vlad Dracula was, he was one of Europe's bravest crusaders, usually commanding the smaller of the European forces, yet inflicting devastating impact and casualties upon the Umayyad invaders. Before becoming Vlad the Dragon, Vlad Tepes and his brother Radu were raised in the Umayyad court under the Ottoman rule. This was a deal made between the Ottomans and Vlad Tepes II, and in order to not raise Wallachia, modern-day Romania, the sons of this Romanian prince would live in the Ottoman court. And what this would do, it would assure the loyalty of said noblemen, and it would slowly inflict on these families Islam, as the children would slowly be bent to this cult ideology. Not only would the sons of the local royalty and the local leaders be taken by these Muslim invaders, almost 30 million young boys and young girls would be stolen away from Europe, would be taken to Muslim lands to be raped, castrated, killed, married off, and enslaved by this vile ideology. What the Muslims would also do is they would take these same children, these same young boys, after castrating them, after raping them, they would turn them into what they called the Janissary. They would be their own cannon fodder who would fight the very people from whom they hailed. So they would take these children out of Europe, rape and abuse them, brainwashing them into the ideology of the Islamic cult, and then turn them back on the people who were their families. A very nefarious strategy. Radu Tepes, Vlad's younger brother, caught the eye of Mehmet II, the young homosexual son of the Caliph. And what Mehmet II would do is he would take this young boy and he would rape him into submission, turning Radu into his little boy toy, and converted him to Islam. Whether he was castrated or not, I do not know, but he was given position in the Ottoman military. Vlad, while in this same state of captivity, Vlad was not willing to become a Muslim catamite. Vlad would receive a physically abusive punishment from his Muslim captors. He would be released, where he would then return to Wallachia. In Wallachia, what he would do is he would take revenge on the men who killed his father, and he would take over Wallachia, becoming prince again, controlling this region for approximately 8 years. And during this 8 years, the Umayyads, the Caliph, decided they were not going to tolerate Vlad's impertinence. Vlad's impertinence was because he refused to pay the jizya tax that the other Quislings and European weaklings were paying. Rather than combine their forces and unite as a military and businessmen, what have you, there were several factions within Europe who were willing to work with the Ottomans as long as they were able to profit from it. One of these groups were the Transylvanian Saxons. The Transylvanian Saxons were German immigrants who had moved into the Romanian region and had taken advantage of the back-and-forth trade between the Orient and Europe. The Transylvanian Saxons put their money on the Ottomans because Vlad was not really very nice to them and had killed a number of the Transylvanian Saxons that he had implicated in the assassination of his father, Vlad Tepes II, Vlad Dracul. After refusing to pay the jizya, the Umayyads decided that they were going to teach Vlad Tepes a lesson. Under the guise of a negotiation, Hamza Pasha, the Bey of Nicopolis, led a force of 90,000 Muslims, Ottomans, crossed the Danube and into Turgovist, Vlad's capital city. Hamza Pasha's orders were not to negotiate any type of peace with Vlad Dracula. His orders were to kill him, and to kill as many of the Wallachian noblemen who had resisted the Ottomans as possible. Vlad knew this. Because Vlad was raised in the Ottoman court, he spoke Turkic. He knew their plans. He knew their methodology. And he would disguise himself and other Turkic-speaking Wallachians, Romanians, and they would invade the Turkish camps, learning secrets, learning strategies, learning routes. On the night of June 17th, 1462, Hamza Pasha was in the foothills of the Carpathian Mountains, ready to attack Turgovist and teach Vlad Tepes the lesson his Muslim overlord had instructed him. Shortly after nightfall, somewhere around midnight, Vlad Tepes decided he would strike first. This daring attack, where Vlad would lead only 30,000 Romanians against 90,000 Ottomans, would be known as the Night Attack. And for 9 hours, until almost noon the next day, the Wallachians would inflict brutal casualties upon the Janissaries, who were unprepared for this nighttime incursion. And using sword and mace and lance and arrow and torch, the forces that Vlad led devastated the Ottomans. Unfortunately, Vlad had put his trust in one of the Boyar businessmen, an ally of the Transylvanian Saxons, to attack on a second flank, and he did not. By not attacking, what he did was he circumvented Vlad's plan to not only defeat the Muslims in their place, but to capture and kill Mehmet II. The Ottomans were smart enough, and Mehmet and his boys hightailed it out of there back across the Danube, and then 4 days later they decided they needed to go back and teach Vlad this lesson. When they approached Turgovist, they entered the city with no resistance. Inside the city, what they saw was a forest of spikes, and on this forest of spikes were 25,000 Muslim Turks, impaled, spiked, every way imaginable. At the center of this forest of impaled Muslims was Hamza Pasha himself, on the tallest spike, honoring his military rank. Mehmet and his army were now aghast at the brutality that Vlad had unleashed upon them. They'd never seen anything like this before, at least not when they had not done it themselves, and they fled back across the Danube, not to return. Later that same year, after successfully routing Mehmet II and his most recent invasion attempt of Europe, Vlad Tepes was out of money. So what he did was he appealed to a sometime ally, Matthias Corvinus, the king of Hungary. But Matthias Corvinus was cagey, sneaky, and selfish. And what he did was he arrested Vlad Tepes, and his reason for doing so was he was convinced by the Transylvanian Saxons that Vlad Tepes, Vlad Dracula, had suddenly come into an alliance with the very same Muslims who he had taught the most vicious of lessons to. Now, this is intellectually dishonest, and we can imagine that Matthias Corvinus's motivations were in the understanding that Vlad Tepes, as a true military leader, as a true vicious individual, the troops and the people might rally behind him instead of rallying behind Corvinus. And with that, Corvinus had Dracul locked away. Corvinus eventually releases Dracula from his prisons, and Dracula returns to the front to combat the Ottomans. Only now he is forced to fight his own brother, Radu. And Radu is a devout Muslim now and a devout homosexual who has embraced this deviant ideology of conquest and subjugation and rape, and with the assistance of these same Transylvanian Saxons and some of the Boyars, is able to contrive events where he meets with his brother, capturing Dracula, bringing him to the Caliph's court, where he would be eventually executed. And even though Dracula's bodiless head would rot on a spike on the Caliph's castle, because of the 19th century fiction writer Bram Stoker. People confuse Vlad Dracula with the vampire Vlad Dracula, the Bela Lugosi character that many see sucking the blood out of the necks of pretty young ladies. That's not exactly Vlad Dracula's true legend. Vlad Dracula's true legend is still remembered and feared in the lands of the Crescent. The descendants of these same Muslim invaders, who are now slowly reoccupying Europe in a most nefarious stratagem, still fear Vlad Tepes, because they know in the night there is a dragon who waits for them to take their heads and to drink their blood and to impale them on spikes. June 17th, 1462, the night attack. Listen to them, the children of the night. What music they make. This is the original man machine, Jim Dynamo. When I need a break from defending the Earth from alien invaders, I listen to The Online Movie Show with Phil Hall, Mondays at 7 p.m., only on pprnradio.net. Download the podcast now. Generations ago, men built machines to serve man. Who then serves those machines? Now it is man who jumps to respond to every buzzer and bell issued by the same machine that tells you day is night, cats are dogs, and fish need bicycles. Break away from the lies that bind us to the bad machine. Download a dose of radical reality with Jim Dynamo's Bad Machine every Friday at 4 on the PPRN Radio Network. Don't let the machine's elevator bring you down.
Beneath the stars, I'm heading back to base. I'll drop you off.
Grab yourself a smoke or a drink and sit down and pay attention to what I'm going to say. What occurred in this nation on Sunday, June 12th, represented the 103rd Muslim terrorist to be killed in the United States in the act of terror in the last 3 years. 103 Muslim terrorists killed in the last 3 years. That's just 3 years. That's just ISIS. That doesn't go back to all the terror events that occurred post 9/11. Most of you do not recall the terror events that occurred before 9/11. The shooting at the Empire State Building, the shooting on the Brooklyn Bridge, the attempted detonation of the Brooklyn Bridge and the New York to Queens and New York to New Jersey tunnels. Right? You forgot about those. You forgot about the original World Trade Center attack. You forgot about the Muslim terror element to the Oklahoma City bombing. Remember how the Clinton administration scrubbed that? John Doe number 2. We all know that John Doe number 2 was really Jose Padilla, the Muslim terrorist known as Abdullah al-Mujahir. So, 103 acts of terror committed until Sunday. And then yesterday there was another Somali Muslim killed. It was reported initially that there were 4, but the media is reporting 1, so that makes 104 Muslim terrorists killed in the last 3 years. Now what the media will tell you is that these individuals are acting by themselves. They're lone wolves. Well, the media is lying to you. Your elected leaders are lying to you. All of these individuals are not self-radicalized. None of these individuals are hermits who live in a cave somewhere in the 18th century. They're all connected via the internet, via chat rooms, via one-to-one person conversations at mosques and tea rooms. That's right, a war has been waging in this nation since September 11th, 2001. If you go back, that war has been waging since the Islamist revolution took place in Iran in 1979. You remember when Jimmy Carter muffed the whole deal trying to rescue American hostages at the American embassy? Well, that was when the Islamists of the world, then the Ayatollahs of Iran, made the big move. They were going to change the world. The caliphate that the Muslim Brotherhood had promised would reemerge after the Ottoman Empire was crushed after World War I would reassert itself in the latter half of the 20th and the early 21st centuries. And you have seen that non-stop, whether it is Yasser Arafat and his .45 caliber pistol at the UN when we were children, whether it was the assassination of Anwar Sadat, whether it was the murder of Leon Klinghoffer on the Achille Lauro, whether it was the explosion at the Marine barracks that killed hundreds of unarmed, sleeping American servicemen, whether it was the Iraq connection to the Oklahoma City bombing, or the Iraq connection to the First World Trade Center, and the Iraq connection to the second and final World Trade Center attack. Forgot about those. It's a single thread that is woven on the prayer mat of terror. So you ask, we're America. What are we doing? Why are we sitting on our thumbs? I'll tell you why. Cowardice. That cowardice is born of fear, and that fear is born of a pragmatism of what comes next. Now I know what comes next, and soon you're going to learn what comes next. But to learn what comes next, we have to learn what came first. 100 years ago, 1916, the Great War was waging, World War I. By the end of World War I, 1918, over 18 million people, both military and civilian, were dead, expunged from the earth. Bloodlines that would never see another son or daughter grace this earth. Gone. The war would kill some, the conditions set up by the war, the famines, the disease, the deprivation, all of these things would result in these 18 million deaths. Just a few years later, at the end of World War II, with nuclear bombs and concentration camps in continents all over the world, our own included, and weapons of war and technology that was created to murder one man to the next. From 1939 to 1945, 75 million human beings were exterminated. Again, for the same reasons. Some were direct military deaths. The others were civilian casualties caused by military action. The remaining portion of those casualties were caused from the deprivations of war. 75 million. The powers that be understood those numbers, and understood as our technology increased, our ability to eliminate the enemy increased, theirs too would increase. And that would mean the geometric progression that we had seen from World War I to World War II would metastasize into billions being killed, were World War III to be officially declared. Once World War III happens, and everyone realizes it's World War III, well, that's when things really get hairy. Now, some of us, like myself, believe that we have been in World War III for the last 15 years. And this war will continue till at least 2040, 2041. And then knowing what the DoD knows, Department of Defense, and knowing the way technology progresses, and knowing how populations are shifting, I have my own personal contention that another greater conflict will reappear in the middle of the 21st century, just as we are seeing a rehash of the worldwide conflict from 100 years ago. The United States is currently in battle in 37 different nations, battling a single enemy. I've mentioned it before. The forces of Islamism. Everyone knows it. It's out in the open. We have to start from a point of sanity. We know who this enemy is. This enemy knows who we are. We make excuses for the enemy. But let's step back to what I have said on multiple occasions. We are talking about a group of people who identifies itself as the dutiful slaves, a pedophile, murderous warlord, rapist. Everyone with an ounce of sense understands this. There is no moral equivalency to comparing what happened in the 6th century in the Arabian Peninsula to what happened in the 6th century of Western Europe. You cannot compare what goes on in the 21st century Arabian Peninsula with any type of moral equivalency to what occurs in the West to this very day. Everyone knows what's going on. Everyone has to make a choice as to what they're going to do from this point forward. The enemy is going to continue to kill you. Your government is going to continue to lie to you. Your media will continue to lie to you, both of them operating in a Goebbels Nazi-like efficiency to make sure that you never get accurate news or information. What you saw on Sunday was a Democrat federal employee with a 50-state carry permit who was vetted by the Obama administration, just like the San Bernardino killers, vetted by the Obama administration, slipping through the cracks like 103 other ISIS terrorists killed in this country in the last 1,000 days. And you don't think anything is going on? You're going to allow them to blame the NRA? The NRA is responsible for precisely 0.04% of all national gun crimes. 0.0. That's a really, really low number. 85% of all national gun crimes are committed by a single urban demographic. That's black males between 15 and 35 years of age, 3% of the American population. That 3% of the population is responsible for 49% of all homicides, of all rapes, of all murders, and of all criminality. Muslims in the United States represent nearly 100% of terrorist events that have occurred in the last 20 years. Naturally, you'll hear the response, well, Tim McVeigh. Tim McVeigh was working with Iraqi intelligence. The Clinton administration did everything they could to scrub this information from you, but John Doe number 2, Jose Padilla, Abdullah al-Mujahir, he was with Tim McVeigh, and he participated in the explosion at Oklahoma City. Your Clinton-run government lied to you then, just like they lied to you about Flight 800. They told you that 300 witnesses who saw the rocket that smashed into Flight 800, they didn't see it, and they were all fools. This is the same government who told you that Richard Jewell, the security guard who saved the Atlanta Olympics from devastating bombs, was actually a criminal when he was a hero. Good Lord, if he were black and a Muslim and gay, and he had done that same thing, he'd be the next president. And you'd be a racist, bigot fool to ever question his motivation. The same way, the same people who tell you that individuals not responsible for the Muslim act of terrorism this weekend are responsible for that Muslim act of terrorism this weekend. Strangely, the media tells you only one person was involved, yet we find out his wife was involved, yet the witness statements, multiple witness statements, say there were multiple gunmen and men holding the doors closed. What we have is another lying situation. What we have is another media fraud and another government fraud. Too many stories are being told, and none of those stories are consistent. The only consistency is there is a Muslim terrorist behind the trigger and there are dead Americans on the ground. If you don't get behind reality, what's going to continue to happen is these attacks will continue, and we will live the way the Israelis do. The Israelis, out of their 365-day year, experience some 700 bombings, not counting the shootings, not counting the intifada stabbings, not counting the rock assaults, not counting the gropings, not counting the threats of suicide bombs, not counting the television shows which portray them and put them in a situation very similar to the one that their ancestors had escaped in fascist Europe 70 years ago. So depending on your perspective, we are on the brink of World War III, or we are already in World War III. We already know that the enemy stands against us, and we know that our government is lying to us, and we know that our media and our representatives are lying to us. There are nefarious plots underway now to strip us of our rights to protect ourselves and to control this government. And the individuals who are behind those plots are traitors to this nation, they are traitors to the Constitution, and they are traitors to the oath to serve the American people. These people are very dangerous, and these people will not rest until we, each and every one of us, has a noose and a collar around our neck and a chip embedded in our skin, that they may control the chemicals that are put into our bodies that will restrict the way we think, that they will control the chemicals put into our bodies that will assure whether our children are healthy or not. They will control who lives in your neighborhood, who has a weapon, while they assure that you do not. This government is allowing terrorists, a Muslim invasion, to come in rather than confront the Third World War. They had proper containment battlefields. They had proper theaters of combat. And rather than maintain this, the quisling in the White House, the individual who has such a hard time saying Islamist terrorist, Muslim terrorism, Muslim extremist, the individual who bows to the king of the Saudis, the individual who spent his teen years in Pakistan, the individual who stood there in front of the world and dared state, "No one will slander the Prophet of Islam." Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Wherever you're from, but when you read my founding documents, that First Amendment says I could say anything I want to you, about anyone. So who you think you are is way, way, way beyond my scope of understanding, because a man who has achieved nothing in his life except win a popularity contest and act like a fool and jeopardize my people, you are an enemy of this nation. And the FBI fool who has slipped 103 times, and the affirmatively advanced idiot with the moronic name Jay Johnson. Jay Johnson, why are you not in jail? That's what I want to know. You are a goddamned fool. You, sir, have killed more Americans than any NRA member. You are a disgrace. FBI Director Jim Comey, if you do not resign for your inability to prosecute Hillary Clinton for her blatant violation of 18 U.S.C. 2071, it is an abrogation of your oath to serve this nation. You're quislings. You're dangerous individuals. And I'm naming you as dangerous individuals. Attorney General Loretta Lynch, you are a most dangerous individual. Your name has been associated with the terrorist Black Lives Matter group, whose email has recently been hacked and exposed on social media, and that they are planning riots at the Democratic and Republican national conventions, as well as the NRA convention this year, as to allow a certain terrorist in America's White House to declare martial law. You have been implicated. America, what you need to do is you need to get off your ass. You need to get off your thumbs. And you need to stop allowing yourself to be talked down to by fools and start putting your faith in the people whom you know. Familiar voices who never seem to be wrong no matter what they're discussing. I won't name any names. You can figure it out for yourself. We're in for turbulent waters. This is going to be the most dangerous summer any of you have ever experienced. Prepare yourselves for natural disasters and man-made disasters. Prepare yourselves for multiple acts of terrorism in multiple locations on a single day. They've been warming up to it. They'll hit New York. They'll hit Chicago. They'll hit Atlanta. They'll hit Jersey City. They'll hit all sorts of places when you're not looking. Because believe me, they are looking. Every hot dog stand, and every halal truck, and every 99-cent store, every smiling face with a wink and a nod, they have plans for you. And your government will allow those plans to come to fruition rather than stand up and stop you from being one of the millions who will be killed in this World War III. The time is now, people. There's no place to go after this. When they get the ball, we'll never get it back. If not you, who? If not now, when? Myths of the Machine is brought to you by our sponsor, Mighty Man Limited. Be a master of the universe when you wear Mighty Man Limited athletic and sportswear, custom-designed athletic compression gear for male and female athletes, compression shirts, sports bras, yoga pants, hoodies, and more. Available only at mightyman.logosoftware.com. Be mighty. Since the time when men gathered around campfires and told tales of the warriors who challenged the monsters that gather in the dark. The mighty men who fought alongside the gods, some rising to victory, others falling into the abyss. These are the heroes who became the myths of the machine. May 2016, Adams County, Ohio. The beekeeper put the smoker down and relifted the wooden lid off of the cedar hive. Gently pulling out the hive frames, the beekeeper began scraping and cleaning off the honey and the propolis that had built up during the winter months. It was now warm enough, the goldenrods had grown. There were more than enough natural resources for the bees. Still, the beekeeper would leave a sugary treat behind to inspire the bees to do more work. After the hive frames were scraped and cleaned, all but one were replaced, the beekeeper reached for a small wooden box, and inside the small wooden box was a plastic queen cage with a piece of red candy stuck at its gate. Gently placing the queen cage in the bottom of the frame, making sure it was secure, the last frame was replaced in the wooden hive, reassembling the hive body and structure. The beekeeper began to notice the blue skies begin to darken, and the wind began to pick up. Still somewhat agitated from being disturbed, the bees flew about as the beekeeper began to reload the transferable supplies back to a candy apple red Jeep Rubicon. The wind began to increase. The skies began to darken even more so. And the beekeeper Looking up at the skies through the mesh face protection, see in the distance what was unmistakably a twister or tornado was developing. The tornado was quickly approaching. The beekeeper, securing all of the gear in the red SUV, unzipped the white bee suit. The bulky white suit sliding down the beekeeper's muscular, lithe frame. The beekeeper removed the head protection to reveal the face of an attractive young girl with auburn hair in a side braid. Flannel cut-off top and cut-off jeans created the Daisy Duke-like farmer girl look. Oddly, she didn't seem worried that the tornado got closer and closer. The winds picking up, the bees becoming more and more agitated. She reached to her braid with her hands and undid it, loosing her hair. Shaking her head, she looked up at the skies as they darkened, and her eyes began to glow, as did the amber pendant hanging from her neck. Her hair began to float as if it were collecting static electricity, the tornado getting dangerously closer, and with her arms spread, the bees, agitated, quickly returned to their hive. And suddenly, no bee was flying in the air. It was only she, the beekeeper, and her glowing eyes, and her statically charged hair, and her outspread arms, and the tornado getting closer and closer. There would be no way she'd be able to drive away and avoid this, but she was not worried. Reaching her wide arms to the sky, the young woman took aloft. She flew higher and higher into the storm, and as the tornado got closer, she and the tornado did an amazing dance in the sky, her eyes glowing, the pendant spinning around her. Back and forth through the sky, the young woman moved around the tornado, a cartoon-like choreography occurring between them, as suddenly the tornado, the twister, began to dissipate, and then quickly it was no more, and the cloud-darkened skies began to turn blue again. The young woman gently landed to the ground. Pulling her hair back, she smiled, looking up at the sky, looking at her beehives, undamaged by the meteorological choreography that had just occurred moments before. Her eyes still aglow, the amber pendant around her neck still humming with energy. From the clear blue sky, a thunderbolt cracked from the heavens, striking the ancient burial mound not far from where the woman kept her hives. A smile appeared on her face. Checking her bees one last time, the young woman jumped into her jeep, looking up at the sky, happy that after all these years, after these many millennia, he had returned.
They can't see what you mean to me, Queen Bee. They can't see what you mean to me, what you mean to me, what you mean to me, my little Queen Bee.
You've been listening to Jim Dynamo's Bad Machine on the PPRN Radio Network. Be part of the Bad Machine Radio Evolution by following our Twitter page at Bad Machine Radio and by visiting pprnradio.net. Bad Machine is a one-man media production, the exclusive owner of all original content. Otherwise, no rights are reserved. 2016.